I was mesmerized by the sight of it. And I got to tell you, it was a little awkward. I think we all can agree on that a little bit. I mean, it just seemed like, I don't know, I just would have liked to see a little bit more emotion out of these guys. I mean, they're finally in the ring together. They're finally talking about what happened. The story goes that Bret and Shawn really didn't say anything to each other during the day because, they had to see each other. And I think the story has come out now. I think they bumped into each other in catering, said hello, and, exchanged a couple of words, but agreed that they're not going to say really anything until they get out to the ring. So they tried to make it as legit as possible. But you could tell that Bret, I love Bret. He was probably my favorite wrestler of all time, but I'll be the first one to admit Bret's faults. He's not a perfect guy by any means, and some of the things he said in interviews and in his book, and, I don't completely agree with all the time, but I still loved him as a performer and loved him as a wrestler, and he was one of my favorite characters ever. So even though my respect for Bret Hart goes through the roof, I by no means believe this man is perfect. And I think I was under the impression that Bret, even though he wanted to bury the hatchet, I just don't know if he can ever truly let go of that anger. I just think he hates Shawn Michaels. I mean, if you listen to some of Bret Hart's interviews after the screw job, years after, 5, 6, 7 years sometimes, he always referred to Shawn Michaels as a cowardly, chicken shit little fucker that he would love to strangle if he ever had the chance. Bret always praised Shawn's in-ring work. He always said he was one of the greatest athletes he'd ever been in the ring with, but he just thought the guy was a piece of shit, never believed him, even called him out on his religion. And he's just making up this supposed relationship with God and like he's a changed man, but he was like, leopards don't change their spots and I don't trust him at all, and fuck that guy. So I really never thought Bret Hart was even capable of forgiving Shawn Michaels. And when you watch the promo, Bret Hart just didn't seem completely into it or completely emotionally into the moment. And even the hug was fucking awkward. I loved the moment where they shook hands. Shawn Michaels kind of turned away from Bret, started to leave the ring, and kind of turns his head back. You weren't sure, oh man, is he going to super kick Bret? Because he was kind of in the stance for that. And then he turns around really quickly and goes in for the hug. And both guys had mics in their hands, and it was kind of that awkward, one-handed, just pat you on the back type of hug. I would have liked to see both guys throw their microphones down, hug each other tight, two hands, and, maybe Shawn just kind of talk to Bret personally in his ear that only the two of them can hear, and maybe Shawn could say really what he wanted to say. And I think these guys have had that conversation, since then, and I know they're pretty much on good terms now. They've seen each other a bunch of times. They did that great DVD and documentary together where they sat side by side with Jim Ross and talked about the whole situation. So I think these guys have definitely put it behind them, and I praise both of them for it. But that first promo, I wanted somebody to cry or something. You know what I mean? Because when you think about it, how many times in the wrestling world do we get these real life situations that cross over into our storylines? I mean, this was a serious deal. This is something that's real life. There was hurt feelings and bad blood for over a decade. 12 years, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart never even spoke to each other, and now they're seeing each other for the first time. I just think it should have been, I don't know, I think these guys could have done a better job of being a little bit more emotional about it, and I think part of the reason is that Bret Hart, even though he was doing it and he was saying it, I question whether or not Bret Hart truly believed it. I thought maybe he was just out there to give his fans the closure they wanted, one more match with Vince McMahon. He wanted to swallow his pride and come in and work with all these people that screwed him over, just for his fans, for him to get his DVD done, and I don't know, anything else he wanted to get done. Because, when Bret Hart is associated with the WWE, his family can get a lot of publicity. They've done several Bret Hart or Hart family member DVDs since he's come back. They were able to get his dad into the Hall of Fame and shit like that. So I think a lot of that was probably Bret's motivation. And when he came back, he just kind of sucked it up and said, I don't really trust Vince, Triple H, or Shawn, but I'm going to work with him anyway because it's better for me and my family's legacy, I guess. And once Bret Hart got there, and he was there for a few months and he worked with Vince and he was able to talk to Shawn Michaels some more, and he came back in once or twice to do some matches like at SummerSlam and other personal appearances that he's done since his return in 2010. I think Bret Hart truly now looks like somebody that's a little bit more at peace. He truly has his closure now. Because I don't know if that opening segment on that January 4th Raw with Shawn Michaels, I don't know if that was truly the closure that Bret Hart needed. I think his closure came a few months after that, once he was back for a while and he felt comfortable, and then, he felt like he was at peace with the whole situation.